Hi, Warren, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
All right, very good. Sorry about that. We had to turn everything back on.
No
and
problem.
off on again, as usual. No, you're ready. Are we good? You can just maximize. You're on the big screen there, Warren. Everyone's okay. I call the July Planning Board meeting to order. Can everyone hear okay with this air conditioning?
What'd you say?
All right, so first up on the agenda is this preliminary discussion of the Birch major subdivision that continuing our preliminary discussion. Can we pull up? Or that's probably too much. Do you have the Mr. Birch?
Yeah, look at it.
Yeah, do you have paper? You have the paper of the two?
I do have, but I also wanted to start out.
Hi,
Okay, yeah, but
I'll call you tomorrow, nothing important. I just had a quick question. Don't worry about it. I'm in the middle of a meeting. Good night.
Original subdivision that was approved 10 years ago. 20-acre parcel, and we were going to have 3 lots. And the planning board actually approved that, but the market wasn't such that it made sense to do the subdivision. So the house on that parcel has been rented out. Well, in the spring, I decided I would move forward with that subdivision, and I applied to the planning board for that subdivision.
but
it-
it was never filed. The maps were never filed.
Correct, the maps were never filed. That was 10 years ago. So this spring, I decided I would come back to the board with this original plan, the 3-lot subdivision on 20 acres that I own. But it turned out that the adjoining parcel, which is a 4-acre parcel here, that goes along the road and includes a house, became available on the market. And so I purchased that. And so it seemed to me, rather than to continue with the subdivision to 3 lots, it made more rational sense to do subdivision of the entire parcel. Turned out, you have the map here. It's a proposed 7-acre subdivision. And at the time I proposed that, I didn't realize that you had the conservation subdivision provision in the zoning law. So it complicated things. And if you look at the map that you asked me to provide, which was with the conservation subdivision, which requires at least 50% in conservation, the effect would be a bunch of small lots. And since they don't have well and septic, there would be problems with designing the well and septic system. So it seems to me that unless I can get a waiver on the conservation subdivision, it would make more sense to me to go back to the original plan, actually file and do that subdivision and do another subdivision, the remaining land. So I guess the first question before the board is, are you willing to waive the conservation subdivision provision in order to make what seems to me a much more sensible subdivision of this land? I mean, it's a rural area. If you go up into the area there and into acre, it makes a lot more sense to me to have 3-acre plus 4-acre lots than to try to squeeze in this conservation subdivision, which ends up with lots that are 1.2, 1.3, 2.4, 2.05.
So this
And changes
is
the
north
character
of-
really.
of,
It makes it-
Where the lake on the way.
Now, you do have the other one, the proposed, the first proposal?
Yeah.
You only have one of those? Oh, we have some.
So you should realize on parcel 1, there is a house. It's an existing house.
Is there another house on that property also?
There's the existing house on parcel 6. That's the one that I own currently that's rented out. The idea in the spring was to go back to the original subdivision, which would have been 3 lots. And then this other opportunity came along, and it seemed to me it made more sense to do it all at once. rather than do it in phases. And if you're familiar with that area, it's a rural area. That really doesn't make a lot of sense to me to put houses at 1 acre and 2 acre parcels.
The property to the west of you, that's Prospect Hill Farms. What's the nature of that? Are there buildings on that property near your property line?
It's just a vacant
open,
land. I think
vacant
maybe
land.
one structure there. So.
That's a new house up on the hill.
I think
where
that's
they
not,
just built.
yeah. I'm not sure, is this Arthur Hart, is that Arthur Hart, or is that?
I think that's
Prospect
a
is
bar-
Prospect.
bar- that's the-
or is that the guy with the
Oh,
window?
no, that's the guy.
This is the guy with the window. Yeah, so his house is up there.
Ray, were you able to examine these?
Yeah, I took a look at both. One of the things that we had mentioned at the last board meeting was to update the map to actually show that existing houses. That was,
Oh, it just. Didn't do it. I just forgot to tell you. Today.
I mean, aesthetically from the road, this is more appealing than having a bunch of houses with land behind them.
So you're talking about the non-conservation.
Right.
Right.
What about this like feature, like this like cul-de-sac sort of thing?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that actually. I think probably we would extend the property lines to the road and provide easements.
I don't think the county, they went to a traditional subdivision first. Plan that was prepared. There's no way the county would allow that.
Oh, no, I spoke to the county.
They're not.
Yes, they are. I spoke to the guy.
You can submit on. It's not gonna get.
Just a warning, because he knows.
So,
I had the county engineer down there.
Pursue it if you'd like to. Just tell them they're not gonna approve.
Ray, the conservation subdivision, so this is how it has to look to do a conservation subdivision?
Well, conservation subdivision, there's many ways of doing conservation, and that's one of the, it's much more flexible, that's one of the benefits. There are certain criteria that require a certain amount of land to be earmarked as a conservation area. There's no building area within that or anything of that nature. And not all projects lend themselves to be a conservation subdivision. The reason I wanted the applicant to go through this process is very clear within the subdivision regulations and the zoning that the planning board has the option of requiring. It's not mandatory that they go to a conservation, but at least it should be provided for the planning board to consider, take the information in, and then decide whether it makes sense to pursue the conservation subdivision or not.
So,
As far as, again, whether the planning board, one of the things about conservation subdivisions are minimizing the infrastructure that's required. In some instances, it is moving the homes together. Some people like that. If it's a very rural area, in this case where it's a linear parcel, it may not what the planning board would like to see.
Well, I have there's no topography on here, but I have a question. Why wouldn't just the lines, if this, just continue back to that back line? And opposed to having this, I mean, that's, you have to have, you're saying you don't have to have this parcel 8, 12 acres?
It's not a separate parcel, but it becomes a conservation area. So it can be deeded over multiple parcels.
And then you can't do anything on that, including septic runouts.
That's correct.
My reading of it was that 50% has to be
A conservation area.
a conservation area.
That is absolutely correct.
That doesn't mean it can't be part of the parcels that you're selling.
You understand, like that area could, like this section of it could go with this parcel, this section of it can go with that parcel. It just has to be designated a conservation area. But it can go like this part, you know, whatever this is, this parcel would become like 3 acres or whatever, and this one would become 2.5.
But what's the point to it if
Becomes a
It's
no
not
build.
separate.
Basically, that way.
oh, you can't build there, so then.
You
it
can't build in
limits-
the
so-
back, but it would be
so
still
it
part of their
limits-
property.
Yeah,
Right,
it
but you
limits your
could- like,
ability
if
to
the
put
property-
a wet, can you put a septic in there?
Well, he just said no.
Or, but
Can't
you
build
could,
it.
you
Yeah,
could
so
build
it-
in the back of the property and not in the front of. Like you could switch where they are, except this is a hill, it's a hillside, I'm assuming, if it goes
Hillside.
up to, yeah.
Yeah, it's more based on the topography, it's more conducive to towards the road. The grade does climb.
So Warren,
Yeah.
at this juncture, what, you know, what do we do going forward? Like he's presented this one plan, do we ask him for revisions of that, or do we have to decide between these two, or what?
Well, I think you're required to go through the criteria for the requiring for the waiver of the conservation subdivision. Is there a way to put that online here so we could take a look at that? I think it's,
So do you have the section? What section is that?
hold on. 275-35, is it 35?
Go to,
131. It is letter F.
Yeah, 'cause he didn't understand what happened.
So we have new
'Cause he doesn't know this. Yeah, I think he just. But that doesn't really change the layout.
No, yeah, just go Town of Pine Plains, E code.
That's great.
Here.
Ray, I have a question for you. So this cul-de-sac that he has put out here, that you think the county won't go for, how else could that be designed? Have four driveways joined together.
He could request for a common driveway, so it actually would be one curb cut, and then there would be cross easements between the various lots, and so everyone would share one entry point onto the county road.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
And not call it a cul-de-sac, just have a few.
That's different.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's calling out for a cul-de-sac.
Oh,
It's
okay.
different from a common driveway.
That's the surveyor's problem.
It's 275-31F. That's the section,
One driveway.
the waiver.
Difficulty by
Thank you,
site-
Warren.
Site distances.
Just you share this.
I would probably
We're gonna have to
just want
scroll down to
force
that.
access.
It's in.
So in your correspondence.
So it
now,
hides.
planning board, you had indicated that you felt that there were difficulties providing layout.
Minimize the whole thing.
for well and septic.
Right.
Is there a reason that
Yeah.
wasn't done on the plan?
What's that?
No, you want to share
Potential
this.
for septic,
No, down.
To show if
You have to-
Where's
you have
this
to go
supposed
in
to
there
fit?
with a backhoe and
Yeah.
it's just-
You just have to go to
because of
that,
the
yeah.
size of the
Hit
lot.
share.
working on
Now go over to the other tab where we're on the eco.
an acre and a third lot. It's very difficult to put it
Right, so my
out.
point is, did you go through
Right,
that exercise?
under that one.
And look at the topography, looking where you potentially would have a septic. Give your radii as far as.
Warren, can you see that?
I can, yes.
All right, so we'll scroll down to F, you said?
Yeah,
Foxtrot? There we go. Can you just? the other one?
Subject to waiver findings is 275-31.
There we go, good.
So 5 lots.
Everyone sees this and reads this. up.
Demonstrate. Yeah, so basically the important sentence in that is the applicant must demonstrate to the satisfaction of the planning board that the conventional layout better fulfills the policies and goals of the Pine Plains Comprehensive Plan compared with the conservation subdivision design for the property.
It's, I believe it's Culver's Corners Hamlet, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the
So
hamlet.
how many acres?
Drew, what's the acreage in that zone?
30,000 square feet residential new sewer.
No sewer? No sewer?
Yeah, they're building a sewer.
But they're gonna- Oh, you mean, okay, I was thinking like, no septic, I'm like, what are they gonna do? Okay. I'll pass. All right. Yeah.
Theoretically, you can put townhouses over there if you want to. It's a rural area. I mean, it's- Drive up Bean River Road, it's rural, the houses with lots of land. Seems crazy
To me, the
force it to
conventional
bunch of farces.
plan that he proposed has the advantage of only 2 curb cuts instead of 7 curb cuts potentially.
Well, yeah, I was just wondering, is this
Which would
the
be
only
just crazy.
conservation easement? Right? I mean,
Right, I mean, this is not this is not
This is
creative,
not-
but it's
Right.
also, I'm not that familiar with the topography, what makes sense.
Well, the highway department said that we can only have the 2 curb cuts because of site distances.
The
That's
town, the county.
County Highway Department. I had them out there. And he said, we just have those 2 access points that we use. Site distances weren't correct on these other parcels. You have to run them through those 2 points of access. So we have 3 lots through one and 4 lots through the other.
Yeah, given the shape of this property, I mean, how else would you do a conservation easement? Instead of straight lines, you have curved lines. It's not much you're gonna change about it. And still get the 7 parcels unless the applicant wanted to say, how about 3 parcels? Go back to that idea.
So what are the policies and goals of the comprehensive plan?
Yeah, you gotta read.
Maintain a rural-
Do you have that? You have to refer back to the comprehensive plan then.
Yeah, rural community with density in the hamlet zone.
And this is in a hamlet zone, right? And so, I mean, we're only talking about 12 acres that might possibly be held out for conservation easement. And I would think on the conventional, you're gonna really kind of have that same kind of open space.
Right.
If we're only
Well, I think
allowing
that's what Michael
a
was saying,
single,
can't you just draw
single
the
family
lines back in
houses
there
on
and
these
make it no
lots.
build zone? But I don't know, because we don't have the topography,
Right.
it may be a no build zone anyway, because
Mhm.
I don't, right?
There
Well-
are areas of pretty steep slopes.
Right,
right.
There that may not.
Well,
There's
well,
one-
obviously he has one house.
There's
so
one
there's-
that's gonna have a house.
Yeah,
I mean, some of those houses are.
But that would have to conform to not being on a ridge line. It would have to be,
Right.
I would think that you as a board would want to see, if it was a conservation subdivision, especially in the hamlet, after being on the comprehensive board, you would want to take a look at what the total build out. We're not talking about how big each individual lot is, how many houses are actually allowed there by the zoning in its entirety. Once he takes out his steep slopes calculation, once he takes out his wetlands, once he takes out his open water. And from there, you can take a look at that number to 7, which is he's proposing, and how big of a transition is that? If he's allowed 20 lots or 20 units in there and he's only getting 7, then at that point, in my opinion, then you're much more willing to work with an applicant. But you kind of need to know what apples are to oranges when you're doing that.
There's still a formula for that. Can we apply that here?
And it's a plan, again, based on some of the input I'm hearing from some of the planning board members. Planning board members are indicating that based on these layouts, that the original traditional subdivision is more palatable, then that's, the planning board's purview to do that.
That's how I'm leaning.
Me too.
Makes sense. I mean, it obviously needs just tweaking, like the driveways, easements, etc. And we need to make sure the topography makes sense. And any, was there any wetlands or anything?
There's a little pond there.
Well, Ray, did you have a chance to check? Did you check
Yeah,
the
that's
overlays?
it's just that it's not a DEC wetland or anything of that nature. So obviously it's Army Corps of Engineers, since it's a water feature, but other than that, there are no other restrictions on it.
Drew will make sure they put the house in the perfect place.
Right, yeah, so how does that work? The placement of the houses, that's up to.
Well, that would be part as the project continues, because again, this is considered a major subdivision. The applicant will have to go for health department approval and so forth. So again, you're only at the sketch plan phase
Yes.
of this project. You can request, and I strongly recommend that when they come in for preliminary approval, that they start that process with the health department, that they show the driveway locations, the grading that needs to be done on all the parcels, the proposed house locations, proposed well and septic locations, and so forth as well.
So Warren, it seems the board is leaning towards granting that waiver,
Okay,
saying that it would, maintain the rural character of the community better to have the regular plan. So what are the steps to getting that?
well, you're only approving the sketch plan. He's got to come back, as Ray had said, with a more detailed preliminary subdivision map. I do not like the cul-de-sac.
Right,
So,
he said he's gonna fix
yeah.
that, but so but as far as the waivers, do we have to vote on the waiver? Do you have to draw up a resolution for the waiver? Like,
no, you can just decide tonight that if you made up your mind that you are going to waive it and allow for a conventional subdivision to proceed, you can still require protected open space on those lots, even if you approve a conventional subdivision. I mean, the one that the alternative that he's provided is pretty stark with that 12-acre piece, but you can extend the lots back and then have a no build zone. There are lots of things you can do creatively to provide the protection. So if you are of a mind to allow him to proceed with the conservation subdivision, then he just has to follow statute and come in with a preliminary subdivision map with all the requirements of the zoning code or subdivision regulations.
well, it seemed the board was looking to grant him the waiver to do the conventional,
Yeah,
not, but you said okay, so you meant conventional?
I'm sorry, I meant a waiver. He would have to come in with a with a subdivision plat that is not a conservation subdivision, but you can still require conservation protections, as a condition of granting that waiver. So
Not build that much anyway.
Right.
We've been through this in the last three things we've done, right? We have built one. You can only build what, max of 2 things. Right.
Right, well, we need more, yeah, so as
It's
a
not like you
preliminary.
can build
right.
10 houses on it. You can only build one accessory.
Right, and again, that's the reason for the sketch plan.
Right.
Right.
Sketch plan phase is,
Right.
Okay.
starting the process with a minimal amount of information. But it's to provide information to the planning board, number one, regarding the difference between the traditional subdivision and the conservation subdivision, without having too much effort on the applicant's part. So that way the planning board can make a decision, as it seems as though it's doing tonight, to allow the traditional to go forward, and that gives the applicant the guidance in which direction to go. Once the planning board grants the waiver, allows the applicant to move forward with the traditional subdivision, then it's upon the applicant to go back, look through the zoning requirements, the subdivision requirements as well, provide all the information and start the process even with the health department, as well as the Department of Public Works regarding the curb cut, regarding the health department on wells and septics, doing topography, because again, there will be full topography required on the subdivision plat, that shows all the grading, all the driveways, all the grades, so we can have that information sent to the fire department so they can take a look at it, making sure they feel comfortable that they'll be able to get fire apparatus up to those houses and different things of that nature. So this is the very start of that process. There's much more information that the applicant will actually have to do. Again, because the difference between this subdivision and most of the subdivisions that the planning board is seeing, this is considered a major subdivision. So the amount of information that has to be provided is more than, one of your other subdivisions, whether it's a 2 or 3 lot.
Right, so the open space, how much open space is gonna be preserved?
Yeah, I mean, that is, again,
We can,
once you see the topography and once that preliminary plan is submitted, then the planning board can take a look at that and see whether it makes sense for that open space to be required.
and what about like visual from the road? We can ask for that too, like.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that understanding, then, those additional conditions, once we have more information, I'm asking for a motion from the board to allow the applicant to go ahead with a non-conservation, with a conventional subdivision.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Let it be shown, the motion passed unanimously.
You have more work.
All right, thank you very
Just
much.
start.
And then when you're doing the layout, think about
3
keeping
fourths. seem like an
open
issue.
space.
Give 3 to 4, I don't know.
Open space.
We'll see when we get the topography.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
The house
Unless
behind the
this
house.
is
Do it.
short, is this field
Oh,
short?
and Tricia will be in touch with you about
Is this the-
the escrow, remember? Let's don't forget that.
Does he want to-
What's that?
Hey, David,
Oh, you want your
map?
big map? We don't need. All right, next up is preliminary discussion of the Koch lot line adjustment and Wesley, I believe.
I'm back. This is your cup.
And I forget, did this go around? Does Warren have this? Okay.
So not too long ago, we did another lot line alteration. Doug owns 2 pieces of property. Him and his wife own tax map parcel. This is Bethel Cross Estates, excuse me, which his house sits inside right about here. So this is Bethel Estates, house sits right in here. House sits right in here. So we're talking about these two lots, if you look down in the area map, which are pretty substantial in size. We have an 86.45 acre lot, which his house is on, and lot number 1. Now, lot 2 has recently been sold, and if you remember, it was only about a year ago, and this parcel right here was added, and that's because his house sits right here and he's looking for protection. So right now what we're doing is he's got a offer on lot 1 of this, and what he's looking to do is try to get some more protection around his house. So parcel B here, shown on the map, would be conveyed to his house parcel and would disappear from lot 1. So lot 1 starting at 8220 acres minus 7.08 would equal 7512. Lot 1 has no septic, no house, no infrastructure, just the New York State DOT issued a highway permit to get in off the road. This originally was subdivided and approved by this board. I'm not sure how long ago. And then most recently, the lot line alteration out of the other lot happened. Interesting note that I noted is when I was doing the short form EAF, a year ago, there was no endangered species listed in the area, but now we have a bald eagle habitat that's listed in the area. So just so everybody knows, we have bald eagle habitat now in Pine Plains.
Oh, we get them at home all the time. Oh, we don't. But that doesn't, they're just threatened. What are they even threatened anymore?
I don't know how they take them off that species list. I think it takes a long time, but regardless, all we're doing is changing where the lot lines are here. We're not adding any significant structures, any significant new lots. One lot's getting bigger and one lot's getting smaller.
Sounds fine to me.
Yeah. That's a lot like change.
Ray, is there anything?
Wesley, just a quick question, I'm sorry. This previously approved lot number 1, the 60 acres?
This should be a lot. This should be a lot.
Oh, okay, that's what I was
That's a
checking. And
typo.
so there's no change to this lot, it's like the only change. Okay, so yeah, that's the only. Okay,
I caught that when I was pointing it out.
okay.
Down there.
Yeah, so if you make that change, no other comments. Yeah.
Oh, by our house? Or no, down here.
Sorry. I saw.
Warren, were you able to examine this?
Yeah, I saw it. Looks fine. I'm trying to remember now. I think we can waive the public hearing on this, can't we, for the minor subdivision? And I don't think you need a 239M referral. So you could,
That's one of the exempt.
yeah, you can grant, in my opinion, unless Ray disagrees, you can grant subdivision approval subject to the map being submitted in its final form. And you're going to need, obviously, a merger. I'm going to want to see the merging of the parcels, and that has to be approved by me. And I think
Okay,
you're
so
done.
I'll send a PDF of the updated map in its final form, along with the one deed and the 2 merger deeds over to Trish, and she can forward them on to you, and you can take a look at it. That'd be great.
Yeah, I don't think it's exempt from zoning from seeker, is it? Is this considered a type 2 action?
Seeker.
Yeah, let me just check. I have it.
It's exempt from the
Yeah,
referral.
I think it's a type 2 action because it's just a minor. So why don't we just indicate that it's a type 2 action, does not require seeker review. Hold on, let me just look here. I got it.
Sure. Oh, What about, so we have the paperwork, like who you're acting
What's that?
for? Do you have the saying that you're able to act, you're authorized to act for
I have a copy of their application, I submitted, I believe so, but I don't want to.
I don't think it's a type 2, but I have no problem with you declaring yourself lead agency. Reviewing the part, do you have the part 2 of the short form EAF? Why
Did
should
he
this,
submit it?
this should really be, yeah, he did. I saw it, yeah. Hold on a minute.
Yes, owner authorization.
Oh,
No worries.
Well, why don't we just
You
go
did
over
that.
the part 2
did
and
do it.
answer all the questions in the negative and declare that it does not require the preparation of a draft environmental impacts.
What is he not- No, I need that. I don't know if he has part 2 on. You just, okay, yeah, he did submit the EAF part 1, and we'll just fill out part 2 right now. I need a motion to declare ourselves lead agency.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes unanimously. All right, so going through the short form EAF. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? No or small impact. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity or use of the land? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? No. Will the proposed action have an impact on environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? No. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonable available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? Will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies or public-private water treatment utilities? Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, example, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, fauna? No. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, drainage problems? No. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No. All right, so we're going to, having answered all of those questions, no, we're going to check the box that we've determined based on the information and analysis above any supporting documentation that the proposed action will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts. What is
Okay,
it?
so you have the buyer for this, for like a
It is
one-family
28th, right?
situation,
27?
Wesley?
What's that?
28th.
The buyer for this, do you know
28.
much about him? It can be a one-family situation. or-
Yeah, it's an architect, I believe, that wants to design their own house. They're kind of ecstatic, because this does have quite a bit of fields as well, which are kind of hidden in there. It's got a really nice, so to get a one family house in here. It's got beautiful views of Stisson Mountain. Kind of, once you get in there, it's kind of a different view than you usually see. You know, sometimes you get around and you see those different views, and it's really cool.
Okay, so now we just need a motion to approve the lot line adjustment based upon, I'm sorry, yeah, having determined that it has no a negative declaration, and also pursuant to editing the typo in the map, and providing of merger, proposed merger deeds, as well as any fees or escrows that,
Do we have to waive a public hearing also?
we did that already,
We
didn't we?
did that already.
Did we not?
No, we can now.
Oh, we did, oh, we didn't, oh, so, yeah, so first, let's, good.
Hold on.
I thought we did talk about it. Can I have a motion to waive the public hearing?
I'll make that motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the public hearing has been waived. All right, and now, can I have a motion to approve the lot line adjustment with the map changes and the merger, proposed merger deeds being submitted, the fees and the escrow?
So,
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We've shown that the application has been approved.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere.
There's lots of action tonight. Why would I leave the fireworks, right, Jim?
All right, so the next up is the Boyles lot line adjustment. So whenever you're ready. Who's, I don't know who's.
Jim, I'll help Jim out here. Jim came in and had a deal with his neighbor. And he came in and got a preliminary approval, I believe, from the board. Jim was under the impression that that was fine and never came back to the board with the finalized maps. And the neighbor deeded over the piece that the lot line alteration was never approved upon here. We have some maps that we can show. Did you bring any maps?
Yeah, I think they went ahead like they got approved.
Yeah.
We just had a preliminary discussion at one meeting.
So, how it's found out is the deed happens, right? And this is Jim's property right here. And this was the 5/100ths of an acre that was deeded out. So what we're trying to do now is rectify the situation, get a map filed, get an approval from the board, and everybody be on the same page. And it was an oversight on Jim's part, an oversight on his attorney's part, but trying to rectify it now and go through the process.
And there's nothing on that little piece of land except soil, right?
And nothing's over here?
No, all vacant land.
Ray, any comments?
No, pretty straightforward as far as the.
Warren, is this having them actually have already done the merger? Does that matter for us approving this, or we just go?
No, you can go ahead and approve, but I do want to see the merger deed for the property that was conveyed. How did he get that filed?
That's a good question. I think unfortunately, the system isn't set up correctly that you can just file deed and file a merger deed. And I think how it came to fruition, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, is the county contacted the neighbor, Joanne Keeler, and asked her, did you know you really sold this property? And that's kind of where it went up and everybody was like, there's no map or anything. And that's when everybody found out that, the map had never been signed or stamped or approved. And that's how we got here.
All right, well, let's clean it up.
All right, so we have to declare lead agency, all the same
Yes.
steps we just did, right? Yeah. So can I have a motion to declare ourselves, no, wait, yes, right, lead agency, then public hearing. A motion to declare ourselves lead agency.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that's shown, we are now lead agency.
Move to waive public hearing.
No, we have to do the part two.
He's gotta read the
Sorry,
Constitution. Please
Do we
don't
have
sign
another
it.
one? All right, will this proposed action create a material conflict with adopted land use plan or zoning regulations?
No.
Will this proposed action result in a change in use or intensity of the use of land?
No.
Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? No. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? No. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonable available energy conservation and renewable energy opportunities? No. Will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supply? Public-private wastewater treatment utility? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, example, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, fauna? Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. No. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? Check this box if you've determined based on the information and analysis above and any supporting documentation that the proposed action will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts. Checking that box. I'm sorry, you can do that. Let's keep things moving. Okay, so now, having made a negative declaration, can we please have a motion to waive the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, public hearing waived. So now I would like a motion to approve the application pending the handing in of the merger deed to Warren for review, and any fees and escrow that is due.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Let me shown, the motion passed unanimously. The lot line adjustment was approved. Are you leaving or are you staying on?
I'm gonna say,
Oh, right, this, you're still involved with this one too.
these last two are all my father. I'm going on vacation, so he's gotta take care of the next one for me.
So the next thing up is the Duchess Land Conservancy, Conservatory, regarding, what was it, Cedar Ridge Farm? We had approved the subdivision a couple of meetings back, and now let's hear what they're looking to do there.
Thank you. Did everyone receive the materials with the request at the letter draft? Sorry, I didn't think to bring copies. I have that one. Okay, thanks so much. So My name is Erin Hoagland. I'm the Senior Land Projects Manager for the Duchess Land Conservancy. And tonight we're just doing a brief presentation on the Cedar Ridge Farm. We are working on an application to the New York State Department of Ag and Markets to purchase the conservation easement on the property, which will be protected in perpetuity. And as part of one of the requirements of that process is to acquire a letter signed by the planning board chair of the municipality that just attests to the development pressures in the town. And most of that is just stated in quantitative data about building permits and some, development. Drafted a letter that's been provided, which you're more than welcome to edit as you see fit or change in any way.
letter, is the letter.
So I just have a couple of maps here. I'll use. So the Cedar Ridge Farm is, thought it was upside down there. Cedar Ridge Farm is owned by Cedar Ridge Farm LLC, which is made up of Sue and Gary Murphy, who are here with us tonight. It's a 247.5 acre property located right on Route 82, just up the road here. Extensive road frontage along Route 82 and it cuts the county line there. This map just shows other, so all of the properties in blue are DLC protected conservation easements, and all of the properties in yellow are other organizations, and I believe that most of these are the Columbia Land Conservancy or other land trusts. And so you can see it's really in a critical mass of protected lands. Many of these other properties, kind of this little corridor here, are other protected farms which have also sold their development rights. The most recent one is here on the Duchess Farm, which just closed in May of 2021. So the property has some exquisite resources. The flat open pasture is all comprised of statewide important farmland soils. Majority, it's about 119 acres, and there is a small area of prime farmland soils. And then, as I'm sure you all know from driving on the road, there's this lovely steep wooded hillside that has incredible views of Catskills, the Stisson Mountain, and the Taconics. And so this is our site plan that we're proposing for the property. The easement will permit the farm to be sold into 2 smaller farms in the future. There are no current plans for that, but it is a reserved right. So as it exists, it's one property comprised of 4 different tax parcels. As you mentioned, there was a recent subdivision of about 42 acres, which is shown here. There will be a farmstead area established on the north here, which encompasses the existing structures and agricultural structures, the old dairy barn that's now a stable, which is 10 acres in size. And then down here, another 8 acre area, which encompasses the stable, which has an apartment upstairs. And so these areas will be designated in the easement document and will just really be the locations that most of the future structures will be clustered within. And there is still flexibility outside of that area for agricultural structures. The state is very mindful of not being too restrictive so that, you know, a farm buyer would not be able to run a productive farm in terms of the easement. In addition to these 2 areas, there is a two resource protection areas really, and those mostly just encompass the steep slopes. Those are upwards of 15 and 25% slopes there, and while it's unlikely someone would build on those, it's not totally out of the question. So we've just put essentially a no-build area on those slopes. And outside of these use areas is considered the farm area. But there is also going to be a future right to establish an area not exceeding 3 acres in size, which will be considered a rural enterprise area. And that can go anywhere on the property at a later date. Again, no plans for that, but it is a reserved right because these agreements run with land in perpetuity. You never know what will happen down the line. But that just allows a farmer additional flexibility to have, you know, perhaps they they want to establish a small area here that would encompass a farm store, other commercial agricultural uses. It doesn't permit another residence to be located in that area. Those would have to remain in the farmstead areas. And so there also is a tributary to the Chicago Creek that runs through the property and a small area of federal wetlands up in the northeast there. Does anyone have any questions?
The farmstead areas, that they're fixed at those locations?
They are. The boundaries really are pretty much set in stone. And unless they wanted to become more restrictive in the future. But again, the state is quite uncomfortable with being too restricted in terms of the size of those areas. And so
what can they put in the farmstead area?
So the farmstead areas really can be, obviously it always ultimately falls to zoning regulations, but within the farmstead areas, they can put residential structures, agricultural structures, accessory structures, all as much as they need. This can be pretty much built out. And then for the remainder of the property, there is a 5%. So whatever this remaining acreage is, if you take out these areas and the potential rural enterprise area, a maximum of 5% of that acreage is permitted to be covered. The way the easement and the state easements particularly account for it is by impervious surface. So anything with a permanent foundation or that's preventing water from percolating into the ground can be built in that additional area. And it's the first 2% of that area can be as of right in terms of not needing approval from the Duchess Land Conservancy. Again, it all still is subject to zoning regulation. But the additional 3%, if it were needed, would have to be kind of pre-approved by the DLC, just because at that point you are getting into a quite large amount of structures. So you kind of need to justify the nature of those and why they couldn't be located in either farmstead area.
What's the penalty if somebody, not that would happen here, but what would happen if someone violated that and built a road that was 8 lanes wide?
Yeah, I mean, so we do our best to maintain relationships with landowners. So we're kind of, especially with the purchased easements, because there are public funds going toward these. We have a very competent stewardship program. So they actually do aerial overflight monitoring every year. And then they do yearly ground monitoring visits. So the likelihood for that to happen, although, it's one day of the year, so you never know, is low. We do, the easement has all kinds of language about dispute resolution and enforcement provisions. So, we essentially have the right to defend and enforce our easements, but we always first opt for a conversation with the landowner and really do kind of an assessment with our board and staff to see, is it a violation to begin with? And if it is, is it really having a negative impact? And so we can be somewhat flexible if it's not a serious violation.
And then that all this, I guess, how does that really, with Drew, how do you interface with these things? You just, it goes on the map, or when someone and so when someone comes in, I want to do something, check that. All right. So all you need from us is this letter. That's the only thing we're doing.
That's correct. Like I said, if you feel strongly that add any information or any information isn't accurate, I actually noticed just while I was sitting here, there are a couple of just minor grammatical things I would like the opportunity to correct. I could send you another Word document tonight even. But if not, then really just they look for it to be signed by the planning board chair and on town letterhead. They used to, it seems like a new requirement, they used to just ask for a narrative about development pressure, but with these new funding rounds that they've been putting out, they are asking for this letter. And we will be going to two things, actually. We'll be going to the town board in August for endorsement. The town board actually has to provide a letter of support in order for us to apply. And we have this project, so no funding source provides 100% of the funds. So we've already gotten an award from the Duchess County Partnership for Equitable Growth for about 38% of the total project costs for the property. So we've been waiting on the state to open a funding round during COVID. They really put it on hold. So now we have the opportunity to make the project whole.
Just kind of a side question. If you go to your website, do you have this map where you can search, or is this publicly available? Like, you can look at different areas.
Yeah, because I would like to look at Wilbur's.
Yeah, this map is not, I believe our overall countywide protected lands maps on the website, but that's quite hard to get a sense of where the easements are, but we do actually provide these townwide maps. So I don't know that we've done that yet this year, but I can certainly get you a copy of that electronically and a paper copy if it helps, because we do have a couple of new ones on that map.
So does that one have all, like, both the blue and the yellow?
Oh,
Is
right,
in that
so
one?
that
This
is
one only has
just,
the blue.
yeah, that's just the DLC easement. So I could get you that. That shows everything, so.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Warren, you were able to review this letter?
Yes, it looks fine to me. Absolutely.
So the board has to vote to approve me to sign it.
Correct.
Move for approval for you to sign it.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passed unanimously. I'll sign this letter once we have the grammatical errors fixed and it's on letterhead. Thank you. Now, Wesley, you have one more or you're done?
No, I'm just saying.
Oh, you said two more. Before you said two more.
It's on vacation now.
Thank you.
Where are we? Just minutes and stuff. I don't. Wow, we have a lot of minutes here, but we didn't do the May.
No, because we just kept going so long.
Wow.
Too late. Forget it, we'll do it next month.
Yeah.
It was like 11 o'clock.
Minutes now. Yeah, this
Did
meeting's
everyone
too
get to
short.
look at, did everyone get to look at all these minutes?
I'm gonna head out if you don't mind. You don't need me for this, right?
Let me just think, is there anything? Why do I feel there was one thing I wanted to ask you?
So if Saturday
Okay.
next, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Doors open at 9:30.
well, yes, Saturday is, 9, right? The doors open at 9, it's 10
Yeah.
o'clock. Doors open at 9, 10 o'clock is the meeting starts. So 9 o'clock, you can come in and see the boards and have a discussion with the people. And then at 10 o'clock, we'll start the show. We'll see. We had about, I don't know, 7, 8 people talked on the last one.
That's all that came.
No, there was a good,
Yeah, there's
45
some good
people.
comments. Yeah.
45 people in the auditorium, but only, and it was weird. We kind of had there was several times where I was like, okay, no one else wants to speak. And then I'll have someone get, and what was this, Stan? He didn't want to talk at first, but then all of a sudden he pulled out, like he had paper. Like, wait, I think that was Stan who had the paper. But it went well, and hopefully, more good comments come on Saturday. Oh, I know. Yeah, we can't. I'll talk to you about it. There was that email thread that went around, Warren. I can't talk right now about it. I guess I don't know. It had an attorney client on it. I don't know how I ended up on that or what I need to be doing about that.
I'm not sure what you're talking about, but I'll be in the office tomorrow if you want to give me a
Yeah,
call.
yeah. I'll talk. Yeah. All right. I'll talk to you later. But thank you, Warren. Take care.
All right. Good night. See you Saturday.
It's here.
No.
Good night, Ray.
Have a good night, everyone. See you Saturday.
All right. So wait, before Drew, is there anything else you have for us?
No.
Or anything else going? Oh, I know what I have to do with West, the map for the restaurant.
Oh, yes. I submitted them,
We have the physicals here
You're opening tonight.
for KTV.
No, I don't think I think I printed them out for Jack. I think I sent Jack that email and I don't think he's picked them up yet. But I did send the final PDF to you.
Yeah, we saw that. And Warren, Warren
I
and
can
Ray
try-
were fine with it, so, and I'm fine with
I
it.
mean, I can drop them off to Drew or I can bring them up to you tomorrow.
Bring them up to me tomorrow, since they're opening tonight. All right, okay, so now back to the minute thing. So Drew, you can go. Thank you.
Okay.
The May minutes, the May regular meeting minutes. Can I have a motion to approve them?
Move to approve May regular meeting minutes.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the May minutes are approved. Now, the special May meeting minutes. Can I have a motion to accept those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, those minutes have passed. The June minutes.
Move to approve the June minutes.
Second.
Dick with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, those have passed. Now the special June meeting minutes.
Move to approve the second June meeting minutes. Special June meeting minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, all our minutes are caught up. I don't know, other business, I don't think we don't have
I
anything
have a
else.
question.
Oh, sure.
At the last scoping meeting, there was no opportunity for board members to speak. Do we have an opportunity to chime in there?
You
or
want to
we're
make a
really-
little, you want
I
to make a
don't- I don't
little
know.
speech in the beginning or?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I do or not. but
Sure, I mean,
I
it's
had a
not,
question about, I don't know whether the question I have is appropriate at this stage.
you had a question for like the planners or whatever?
I don't know. I mean, well, I just had a question about how much of the land of that development is going to remain agricultural. Because in the one from 2011, it was 37 acres
Hmm.
plus a quarter acre for a community garden, which I think they really have to rethink that if that's where they're headed. Because, I mean, if you go back to before Carvel was there, most of that land was farmland. And I think that we need to be cognizant of that. And I don't know whether that's part of scoping or part of some later step in the process.
It's got to be in the scoping somewhere, right? This farm,
Yeah.
yeah, that's in there
Yeah, it's in
somewhere.
there. It's in there.
So, well, I mean, once we hear the public comments, then we have to decide on what the final scoping document has to look like.
Okay, okay.
So,
I guess that's fine.
At that deliberation, that's, I guess, would be, but bring it up with our planner. Are you coming on Saturday? You're gonna be
I'm
there a little
gonna be
late, right?
late, but I'll be there.
Bring it up with the planner. I mean, if you want to say something about it, I have no problem, but like,
I'll bring it up with them.
I mean, it's really, the session is really for the
Yeah. I
the
understand
people.
that.
If you notice, we don't even, like, it's not even, like, we don't even have to have a quorum there. We can have that with, we
Yeah.
don't necessarily even have to be there.
And we said there was to be no interaction. so-
Right, we're trying not
Yeah,
to.
that's fine. That's fine.
So what was it? So, yeah, so obviously everyone who can come, please come, you're welcome to come to the next scoping session on Saturday. Oh, yes, Sarah?
I just want to say that a planning board member can certainly speak in their personal capacity as a member of the community at the scoping hearing, and you should feel free to do that if you would like to. There's no problem.
That's true.
Okay, I'll think about it.
And then that way, it's in the materials that have to be discussed and looked at. So
Right,
if it's
right.
raised, then it gets addressed.
Well,
Or you could put it in a letter too.
Yes,
Yeah.
you can put
That's
it in a
true, that's
letter,
true.
that's just as good.
We're gonna have to go through all that, all the correspondence we get.
I could stay incognito.
Whatever you'd rather do.
Now, I must say that I think their draft scoping document is pretty thorough. And I'm just a little afraid that we're gonna get on it and they'll come back in 3 weeks and say, here's our final DAIS, because they've been working on that too, I'm sure, so.
What
Well,
time does
it's
it
I don't
it's
wanna
gonna
get-
take a little longer.
Well, I just don't want this to, if we get to October and they say, we're done, approve it.
Well,
we're gonna
We
be
have
nervous
time,
about
we
that.
have to have our experts be able to look at it. And
Yeah.
like, there's,
I want them to take their time too.
yeah. And then they have to, all the alternative plan thing, that's gonna lengthen things, because that,
Yeah, and I had a question about that too, actually. If they come, now, the proposal that they put out is for housing,
Right.
period. If they come back and say, well, the alternative, or if we come back and say the alternative of a hotel, why wouldn't that reset the timing on going back to scoping? Because a hotel is a whole different kind of project.
Well, I think it has to be in the scoping. That's why they already have it in there, right, as an alternative. I think it had,
Well,
so the
it's-
scoping
it's
member
not-
is like,
It's not located, well. it's
they're
not
gonna have,
located on the
I mean,
map.
they don't have to necessarily address that in the scoping. It's gonna be, because the scoping should encompass anything that they would do, well, not anything, obviously not like a factor or something, but like, within what they have, but then the DEIS is gonna have to address the alternative plan and what the effects of that are. When they do that, it has to be in there. if they're
Right, but I
proposing.
mean, here we've had a scoping session, and the hotel idea is really not on the table. I mean, as far as the public is concerned, it's not, it's mentioned in their 20 pages,
Right.
but it's like on page 18. In one sentence.
Out there a couple times.
So what
Yeah,
should,
yeah, I mean,
what
we know it's probably gonna be the option. But how do we get people to buy into that, rather than say, well, it was housing, but you know what, we're gonna put a hotel instead. And I just,
I don't
it
understand.
concerns me at that, and it
Right.
could be that in the whole seeker process, that those
I would just
alternatives.
ask the planner.
yeah, talk to Frank
Send them an
on
email
Saturday.
to Restart the.
Okay,
Yes, Sarah?
I think that I haven't seen the survey map or survey number on any of those documents yet, and I've been begging Cheese to give them to me.
One of the issues with the resort, the prospect of the resort is that the current zoning law really doesn't adequately, that doesn't really make a resort possible in terms of the size.
Right.
Now, the zoning, the rezoning issues have addressed that, whether that's sufficient or not, I don't know. But if it was gonna go to a resort configuration, I think it would have to be a great deal of study and a great deal of time would actually transpire before that
Yeah, yeah.
ended up happening.
yeah, and I would think that based on how thorough they want to be, that they begin to, sure, let's talk about it with the public as much as we can. Because that's gonna have an impact.
Because a resort takes away some of the residential units.
You
And
bet. Maybe a lot.
currently, I think the proposed zoning for a resort, under the new zoning for resort, I think requires something like 100 acres. I don't know how that's going to work. I have big problems and issues about that
Mhm.
also.
Yeah, okay.
It's a work in progress.
Yeah, well, that's the pass. You guys have to pass that yet, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, when is the public hearing for that?
Was I on that one?
I think it's in August. It's in August.
Right, it's 17th, isn't it?
I think it's at our regular board. meeting.
But yeah, we should ask, like, how does the alternative affect the scoping / DEIS process?
Mhm.
Yeah, ask the consultants
Right.
about that and see what answers. we get.
I actually asked Stuart after listening, I was like, so I wasn't totally sure, like the golf course, is that open space? Or is that, is that open space? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm
I
not,
feel like it is open.
he said
Considered
he
open
says that's a good question, so I don't know if there, so I don't know if that's in where they're falling in the calculation. I mean,
It's in the defined terms, and any defined terms I've seen, it's just like Aaron said, it's impermeable surfaces. So even if you've got grass and it's well maintained,
It's all-
Well, the previous plan had the lawns were part of it.
Right, it's part of the.
Yeah.
That may be on what they're planning here too. That may be in their calculation.
The lawns,
The lawns of the
around-
houses.
around the
were
houses.
Last time
considered
they
open
counted
space.
that as open space.
well, not this time because we did,
Right.
well, not open. No, yeah, you're right, it could be. Because the calculation we did so far is not necessarily open space, but it's the reserved areas are done. But that was interesting, the public thought like that open space meant that's where they're gonna cut all the trees down. You know, I was like,
Oh,
well,
really?
that was one of the things we said, no, we didn't say much, but that was one thing we corrected, that doesn't mean they're gonna cut all the trees down, that means just things that aren't developed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and another, everyone, I know it's really hard to get training done, but if there's any opportunities online with the Planning Federation and some things have gone around. Do what you can.
It's the sexual harassment training I did at the store. Does that count?
That's additional, that's our additional. Well, we did that already again this year, right? Yeah, yeah, I think we did it already this year. So.
I'll be good.
I did it within the last.
Yeah, I mean, every year we have to do it. Yeah, we did one like in November, and then there was one early this year.
Was what, 8:30?
Yeah.
Had to be online at 8:30.
But there was a couple sessions.
It's different ones, yeah.
Okay, with that,
Motion adjourned.
Second.
all in favor?
Yes.
Thanks,
All
Michael.
opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good to see everybody.
So many times.
Right. New Orleans could look at people.
I know, I
Halfway there.
looked at them
Yeah, I
so
know.